Afternoon, happy Tuesday. I had some questions from my last post and people reached out to me, and I appreciate all of the support and knowledge that other people have, and I just have a really good tribe of friends and family, and I'm very appreciative of that support. I did get some testing done and I wanted to update on that. I have an MRI scheduled for Friday, but I did have my appointments got swapped, and I did have my nerve testing done early, which was the main thing I wanted to have done in order to get some clarification. And as I said in my last post, I believe that I was diagnosed with radiation-induced lumbosacral plexopathy, which is very disheartening because it is progressive and they don't really have any treatments for it, and but there's a lot of unanswered questions too. So although they say there's no treatment and that there's no way to stop the progression, I feel like there's always a way, and we just haven't come up with it yet, and they haven't figured out what works. So I'm just kind of throwing everything at it, and we'll get into that. But my nerve testing results were that so radiation-induced lumbosacral plexopathy is because I had radiation therapy to treat bone cancer, Ewing sarcoma, that I had in 1992 at the age of 12. That radiation therapy was very targeted. Radiation therapy since then has come a long way, and they're using different, not methods, but different strengths and things like that now that they know what long-term radiation can do and how it affects the body. It saved my life. I definitely don't have any regrets, and no matter what happens from here as far as my mobility goes, I know that I'm blessed and that I did win the lottery with my life. So I've had some progressive nerve and muscle issues in my right leg for a long time now, because obviously I was 12 when I had treatment, and a lot of the things were kind of unanswered. We just assumed that it was from treatment. There were a lot of things that didn't make sense to me though, and now that I've found some doctors and put some pieces together, it is making more sense. And at least I have an idea of what is going on. It's just now, how do we fix it? Or they say there's not a fix. How do I work towards the possibility of preserving function and slowing the progression? That's my goal. So it didn't make, so the cancer, the Ewing sarcoma that I had was in the top of my right femur, and that is like your hip area. It didn't make sense to me why I was having foot drop, which is the inability to lift or push down on the foot. It's called foot drop. I've had that. It's progressed to a more serious foot drop, where I can't curl my toes. I can't move any of my toes. I cannot pull up my foot or push down. And I've compensated with a way of walking to keep myself from tripping over my right foot. So I have more of a limp. I've always had a little bit of a limp because of the radiation to that hip area. And there's some radiation damage to the bone itself. But I've compensated. And so the foot drop didn't make sense because the cancer I had was at the top of my hip. So I'm like, why is my foot affected? Then later, my calf in my lower right leg, it was significantly smaller to the point where the muscle was atrophying so much that it's noticeably smaller, my right calf area. And I'm like, okay, well, that's my lower leg. We're still talking about cancer was in my hip. So why is that happening? So after a while, I was triggered, not triggered, I don't know the word I'm looking for. After having a lot of unanswered questions, I decided, okay, let me just put all this in the computer and say, what's the type of doctor that can treat this, this, and this? Because I've been to physical therapy. I also had been to a foot and ankle doctor many, many years ago, when the foot drop had just started and when my calf was having issues. So this was a while ago. I did some physical therapy. The progression still existed where my foot was no longer functional. Anyway, so all that to say, I typed it all in the computer, and I found a physical medicine rehab doctor was kind of who I was looking for. A physiatrist is what they're called. And so I went to her, and she was like baffled. She has dealt with a lot of different things, a lot of like traumatic brain injuries affecting things, but this lumbosacral plexopathy, especially from radiation, is so rare. I don't even think it's really that rare. I think it's just that people don't know what it is, and they just relate it to, well, I had treatment and this is what happens. And that's what I did for the longest time. So she ran some testing, the nerve testing, and it all kind of made sense. So I have a little bit of a diagram. So why was I having muscle atrophy and nerve issues with nerve innervation in the lower leg? And it's all because of this. So this is your spine. This is the bottom part of the spine. So like this is we have different parts of the spine. This is the end of the thoracic spine, and it goes down to the lumbar spine and then the sacral spine. So where I had the cancer, I kind of highlighted in purple here, because this is like the femur, the hip area, the top of the right femur is where I had the cancer, and the radiation was directed towards that area. And in that area, you can see that there are some of these nerves that, although they start up here in the spine, they are being hit by that radiation. And those nerves go all the way down your leg. So different nerves that were hit and affected by the radiation go all the way down the leg to control and innervate the muscles. So some of those nerves are what's responsible for lifting the foot, pushing the foot down, lots of different things. So unfortunately, most of my results weren't great. Really, a lot of my nerves that come from the lumbar and sacral region, the lower lumbar and then the full sacral region, have been affected from radiation to the point where they're really not sure how I'm walking. No, I mean, I really compensate a lot. But so part of that nerve testing, there's two parts to it. There's the nerve conduction study and the electromyography, EMG. The nerve conduction study, they put electrodes on the skin. They did my left leg and right leg for this part, so they had a comparison. And they stimulate the nerves with little electric shocks to see how the signals travel. And then the EMG is where they insert these little thin needles into specific muscles to record electrical activity at rest and during contraction. Healthy muscles are silent at rest, while damaged muscles show abnormal electrical activity. That part was super interesting because she actually saw and heard. So she'd put these little needles in, and a lot of my muscles have no function. But there is something called myochymic discharge, or myokymia, which is present in an area that has radiation damage. And so she doesn't get to see that a lot or hear it. So she heard it, and she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, this is myokymia. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. But basically there's a specific sound that it makes too, and they describe it as, it sounds like soldiers marching in the snow. So it's like, anyway, she was very excited, and I was just like, oh, one more thing that's damaged. I just have to laugh. But anyway, those test results are back and not good. A lot of the nerves that stem from the lower lumbar region have been severely affected, to the point where a lot of them aren't firing. And the muscles are really not working because there's no nerves to innervate them, and it's amazing how our human body works. And so I can't help but think that there's something out there, right? So I've been just throwing everything at it because we don't know how fast the progression will be, although it's pretty bad now, as far as what functions and what doesn't. But my compensation is amazing, she says. She watches the way I walk. She's like, oh my gosh, you use your left this and that. But she's concerned because I also have osteoarthritis, which, affects your joints. And as you age, things just naturally deteriorate, right? So I'm putting a lot of exertion and a lot of force onto my left leg to compensate the right. And so the concern is if we don't brace the right or find something, that my left will give way just from, if I'm just constantly using my left leg. Even so, because I don't have the dorsiflexion and plantar flexion in the foot of my right, if I have to reach up into a tall cabinet or something, you'll see me literally use just my left leg. And so my left calf is fully functional and amazing, but my right calf muscle does not operate. So I have a neuromuscular electrical stimulator. It's kind of like a TENS unit, and you place those electrodes on some of these muscles in an effort to stimulate the electrical activity. The thought is any muscles that are currently have limited function or some function, maybe I can strengthen those or at least preserve them for longer by using that. And then we also have red light therapy. I have a full red light therapy panel, and red light therapy has been proven to regenerate nerves. We don't know if it will work on nerves that are completely gone. That would be a miracle, right? But if I could just preserve the current nerve function and maybe even slow the progression, that's key. So the outlook on this, it's hard to say because they don't have answers. There aren't a lot of people with this, or there aren't a lot of people that know they have it. There's not a lot of people that are still living today that had external beam radiation back in 1992. It's just rare on top of rare on top of rare. And I have to think positively because otherwise I drive myself crazy. There are people out there that had radiation to the full pelvic area, and so they have this on both sides. So mine is just on my right. And we know what it is now. So there's a lot of bracing options. I'm going to see an orthopedic specialist. He actually specializes in sarcomas, which the type of cancer I had. And he also specializes in complex cases for prosthetics, things like that. We don't know what the long-term progression of this is, so I want to have a plan when if and when things start shutting off altogether. I want to be able to know who to go to and how to help this, because I'm not going to be dragging my leg around. I refuse. So there's the update. It's not great, but I'm going to think positively, and we'll see what happens. I will update you after my MRI and also after I see the orthopedic specialist. That should give me some more answers, and I'm sure there'll be more referrals for neurologists and things like that. So stay tuned on my crazy adventure in radiation-induced lumbosacral plexopathy.